Right. So I am now recording. So Jason, if you could for us, just in your own words, if you can just explain to us how you calculate that CPE ratio that we're supposed to keep over the time frame of the contract.
Sure. So the the CPE to service ratio is simply the ratio of qualified expenditure by Georgetown University on the Verizon contract, categorized either as CPE, customer premise equipment, and related equipment expenses, or services category, which would span a range of services provided by Verizon, such as installation of the CPE equipment or professional services, work that's being done on the campus buildings for the Wi-Fi upgrades, such as the structured cabling, the project management, any type of, quote, professional services umbrella would typically be categorized as services. And so what we do, so in the Verizon contract, or the Verizon Services Agreement, shortened to VSA, there's a section in there that, or a clause, I should say, that stipulates at the end of the initial 5-year contract term, or including 1 or 2 of the option years, depending on whether Georgetown elects to exercise either of those option years. So it could be the 5-year, 6-year, or 7-year term total. At the end of that term, Georgetown needs to maintain a minimum spend on the services category of 60% of the total qualified spend. So the minimum ratio is services to CPE is 60% to 40%. Now, for all the parties' benefits, we actually track on a monthly and annual basis the services to CPE ratio, to help us understand if we're potentially trending lower than the minimum 60% requirement, if we're higher, and what's the deviation from that requirement. Essentially, that clause, if that requirement is not met at the end of the agreed contract term, then there's a penalty, something in the area of Georgetown would be obligated to pay a certain percentage of the difference if the services spend is below 60%.
Hey, Jason, can I just jump in and ask a really quick question? So you said it is a specific section in the VSA, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just want to make sure I'm looking at the same thing you're referring to. Do you know off the top of your head, or if you took a quick glance at the VSA, which one speaks to the 60-40? Because I have 6.3.23 and Amendment 1, and I just want to make sure I'm looking at the same thing you're looking at.
Sure, yeah, that's the approximate section in the VSA. I'm actually scrolling down to it now to confirm that. So, yeah, so 6.3.2.3. So 6323, required balance of purchases. That clause details the 60% minimum requirement of the TVC, which is total volume commitment, i.e. total qualified spend on Verizon services versus CPE. Okay, and then in order to calculate total qualified spend, you have to go up one section to 6321 and 6322 in terms of what's included in calculating qualified spend versus what's excluded.
And so let me just jump in real quick. So this section specifically, I think, I mean, I'm scrolling down there myself.
Mhm.
As far as what qualifies a TVC, that was amended, right, to include, so it's a little different.
Yes, it was amended by amendment number 1 to the VSA, which the objective of amendment number 1 was to incorporate the introduction of the Meraki technology after the original VSA was executed.
Okay, so can we,
Yeah.
just to make sure that we're on the same page, when we're referencing what qualifies the TVC,
Mhm.
where can we talk about what's in Amendment 1? So that way, because in my mind, I'm thinking like a lawyer, this amendment is gone now. I mean, what's originally in the VSA is gone now. Amendment 1 is the new document that we're referring to.
Understood. So if we look at Amendment 1, it modifies sections 6.3.2 and its subsections.
Yes.
Okay, so and what it does is, it adds an additional line under under the section of inclusions. So that's original section 6.3.2.1. It adds the additional line of Meraki equipment when purchased with a license that's included in total qualified spend.
Okay, so then that means, I'm just trying to understand. So that means this is included, everything that's listed is supposed to be counted towards our services?
Well, no, everything listed here is counted towards qualified total spend.
Qualified total spend. Okay.
Yes.
So it's not like it's broken down between the 60%, 40%. It's just overall. Okay.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, that's where I was getting thrown off. I thought everything listed here was what we're counting towards services. So if it's going to go towards the 60% of the services, it'll be clearly identified. Like how are we to know what's going to go towards the 60% services versus 40%?
Right. So then you have to go down to the original section 6.3.2.3, and the amendment number 1 does modify that original section as well, because it adds in again an item related to the Meraki technology purchase. But the overarching definition of services versus CPE still remains. If you look in this section in the Amendment 1, when it talks about Section 6.3.2.3, required balance of purchases, it defines CPE as solely the hardware and associated operating system software necessary to operate the hardware as CPE, and shall not include any install or maintenance services as part of CPE. Those would be counted as services.
Okay.
So really, you have the definition for CPE there, and then anything else is counted as services.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, what Amendment 1 does to this clause is it also adds in the Meraki technology purchase. And the way it reads is, for avoidance of doubt, 50% of Meraki licenses shall count towards CPE and 50% shall count towards Verizon services.
Okay. And that's because we have implementation and the software.
Correct, yes.
And then Amendment 1 also kind of speaks to the whole invoicing, right? I think John was saying that it also clarifies when.
Yes, at the first part of Amendment 1, Section 6.3.2, total service charges, it basically states all charges based on invoice date incurred by the customer for services.
Okay, cool.
So it's essentially just clarifying that all charges are based on invoiced amounts.
Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying.
Sure.
Alrighty. I will stop the recording now.